Hello everyone, my name is Quern, and welcome back to the Vintage Story Guide. We are back in the world after our adventure in the last episode, where we went underground in several places and fought some locusts and some drifters, and then we ranged south in this direction, and I hear drifters in our cave down here. Wonderful. We are back, and this episode I want to return to working on the house. Well, sort of. That might be a slight lie, because I want to build a windmill. And I want to get into wind power because there are several aspects to the game that can be automated, and I want to take advantage of those. And so I was thinking that we could build a windmill kind of off this side of the house. Maybe move it here, like drop it right here, and then maybe even have like a little bridge from the second floor of the house over to the tower. And that way we'd also have like a covered driveway here where, you know, hypothetical passengers could embark or debark to and from their carriages when they visit the manor. Granted, we don't have any visitors, but hey, whatever. So to do that, we need to talk about mechanical power and how to harness and utilize the wind. And so for that, I want to slide over to a creative world where we can do just that. And here we are in my creative world, and I have my giant helve hammer log on my shoulder. So we have here a very basic windmill setup, just a windmill, nothing attached to it. All this does is spin. Windmills, of course, require wind to function. And to catch that wind, you need a rotor, and you need sails. Now, I'm going to break this momentarily, grab these sails. So, a rotor on its own won't turn if it has no sails. Each set of sails, they come in sets of 4, create sort of a 1 meter block of sails. If I hover over the rotor here, you can see the wind speed and the sail power output. Now our current wind speed is 48% here, and our sail is at 20 kilonewtons. You can put up to 5 sets of sails on a windmill. So we have the second one, we now have 40 kilonewtons, a third set is 60, a fourth set is 80, and fifth set is 100. And you can actually hear it's louder the more sails you put on. Now the number of sails and the current weather aren't the only things that can affect your wind speed, because height also affects your wind speed to an extent. Here we have a windmill that's relatively close to the ground. We have a wind speed of 48%, which tracks because I think we have sort of just moderate wind right now. I don't see any particles blowing around or anything. Way up here we have another windmill. This is the same setup, 5 sails. However, here we have a wind speed of 71%, and you can hear it's actually working faster. That whoosh 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 is coming in faster. So when building a windmill, you do need to consider how high you are from the ground. Now the ground is defined as sea level for your specific world, and our world, our survival world, has a sea level of 110. The way that height affects wind speed in a standard world with a sea level of 110, meaning the Y level over here, is that starting at Y level 121, you get a 1% boost to the wind speed. For every block up that you go above 121, you gain a further 1% per block. Now this maxes out at plus 50% at Y170. Now Y170 on our world is about 50 blocks above where our ground is on our little ridge, which would put us about here. So if we were to look down from the top of our windmill, or I guess from where the rotor is, this is about how high we'd be off the ground if we wanted maximum wind power. We may not build that high because that may end up just kind of looking silly if the windmill is too much taller than the house, but we will play with that in time. So what can you do with this wind power? We're going to slide over here to our first example. The most basic thing you can do with wind power is use it to power a quern. And we simply have a rotor that goes into an axle, goes to some angled gears, down another axle, and then into the quern. Now, it should be noted that there is a small amount of loss in power over distance. If you have a very long axle, you can lose power. I have not tested it personally, but in the community on the Discord, I have seen that in general it is a very small amount. But that isn't the only thing you can do with a windmill. And we're going to look at a few advanced things that we're not going to really get to today, but we will in the next coming episodes. So first, we have the same setup. We have a single rotor going into a single shaft down to a large wooden gear. And this is the reason we've been collecting all that resin, is that these angled gears and these large gears and a lot of these other bits and pieces, they all require a lot of resin. So I have a large gear turning. It currently has nothing hooked up to it. But we do have a clutch and transmissions. You can actually use these to turn on and off your different machines. So here we've turned on the Quern, and there we've turned it off. Now, it is important to note that not only do the game mechanics emulate power, but also torque. So we have a good bit of torque coming from this, enough to run a Quern, or a pulverizer, or a helve hammer. Now this will slow down. There we go. Now do you see how fast that's working? This is how fast one windmill will run one helve hammer at 48% wind speed. But if we start adding more things to this powertrain, let's say the pulverizer, and then we'll add the Quern, see how much slower that goes? And see how much slower this Quern spins compared to this one over here? So when building out your windmill and what's going to power, you need to consider both your input and your output power. And these large gears can gear up or gear down your entire powertrain. So if we had connected this windmill, say, to this central axle here, and we can do that right now. So now we have a powertrain connected not to the side of this large gear, but instead to the central axle of this gear. And as you can see, our entire powertrain has stopped. This windmill is not turning. And that's because here we are trying to gear up, meaning this would make these machines run faster. And what that can do is that's going to drop our torque. So we may not have enough power to actually do anything. So here we go. It still has enough power to run just the Quern, but only barely. See how slow that's going? And that's because although it has the power, it doesn't have the torque to manage this gearing up. Now to counteract that, what we can do is we could put more of these rotors at the top here and hook them all together with one of these large gears. And I've done that in this rather silly looking contraption over here. It's important to note when building these that windmill rotors, if they contact a block near them, let's say, not quite there, but let's say there, they just break off. These can be affected by snow, so if you have a rotor that's only 5 blocks off the ground and a full set of sails on it, and the snow piles up, the snow can actually break your rotor blades. However, the rotor blades themselves have no collision amongst each other, so you get this kind of weird thing. I don't like it, and we're not going to build like this in the survival world because it's just a little too cheaty and silly looking. Now these are providing 4 times as much torque to this whole powertrain as this single one did over here. So where this single rotor struggled to run all 3 of these machines at the same time even when it wasn't hooked up to the central axle of the large gear, if we turn on, say, this, we now have 4 very loud helve hammers running, and we can connect to this machine that does nothing, and we can hook this up, and we have pretty much no problem running all of these at a decent speed. And that's because while we are gearing down up here, going from low torque high power to high torque low power, we are then gearing back up here from high torque low power to low torque high power across all of these. And these are feeding enough torque into the whole system that they can run everything effectively. So everyone, it is Infrastructure Week. This week, in the next couple episodes, I want to focus on rotational power, namely with windmills, and what we can do with them. With that little lesson in torque and power and rotation and machines, let's get back to our survival world. Okay, so we are back And I am wishing that that wasn't there, and that... Oh, look, a little friend. Hey, buddy. I've got kind of rough news for you. I want to put our windmill right over about in here somewhere. And I want to line it up with our house's center line, which is right here. And I know this because I purposely put these doors opposite sides of the center line. And let's just go out, I don't know, a few blocks. There we go. Got 13 blocks, lucky number. And that gives us a nice odd number to work with so we can center things easily. And let's do a smallish tower. And we'll do something like this. And we'll take it on up from here. Well, after this goes away at least. Now, we have a bit of a problem in the building materials department because we have 42 plaster, and somewhere I think I have some more quicklime lurking. Aha, here we go. So we have 2 more stacks of quicklime and 2 more stacks of granite sand. So we have, what, 2 3/4 stacks of plaster potentially? That's going to get us up maybe 13 or 14 blocks. And this needs to go a bit higher than the house. I want to have it higher than the house visually because it wouldn't make sense to have a windmill blocked by the house. And I should note that, just like in our creative world, although the wind always appears to blow from the west going east, wind functions equally in any direction. But we can have 4 windmills, 1 in each direction, all hooked up to the same large gear and feeding our powertrain. But I do think it would look funny if that windmill wasn't at least a little bit higher than the house here. So I think that's where we're going to go. And my plan long term for building this is that what I'll do is I will rough in a frame here using the plaster, and I'll get a floor in and some of the details started, mostly just the foundation frame just like over here with the shell cobblestone. And then we'll hook up all of the powertrain together, and then I'll just throw some limestone into the quern and let it go. And as it grinds up more lime for us, I can then turn that into quicklime and spin around and put that right back into the tower as plaster. That's my plan, and I'm sticking to it. So, without further ado, let's probably wait for this guy to go away, and then we'll start building this tower. Okay, well, I spent the entire night and part of the morning at the old house just doing some panning of that 45 bony soil we got on our adventure last episode. Here, in this chest, is what we got from that panning. Nothing to write home about, though we did get some spending change and some flax fibers, a few candles, which is real nice because that means that we can make even more lanterns, and we got 2 more books. So let's give them a read, and then we'll progress with our scheduled programming. Oh, nothing new in these pages. Okay, so we have those already. And we got Breakdown Part 1 of 1. And there is Breakdown 1 of 1 with only the 1 page. Okay, well, I think we can actually sell these to certain traders. I want to say the treasure hunter traders might buy them sometimes. So we'll hang on to this guy and see if we can get some cash for it later. Let's get to it. What do you think? Is that too tall? I think it might just be just right. And right from there, we will have our rotors come out. They'll stick out a little bit because we're going to have that same kind of flare on the roof. And we'll have a nice tall pointy roof go up to about there. And that should be it. So let's fill in a little bit of this, and then we'll get working on the actual windmill and the rotors. At least one of them. So I think we're going to come in here, and we're going to put the rotors where the windows would be. So what we're going to do is, each floor, each of these dirt blocks represents one floor, but we'll have a small 1x2 window here, in each of the 4 cardinal directions, except for here, where at least on this floor and the second floor, this floor will be a little offset, and the second floor will have the bridge. So those will be different, but the rest of them will come 1 block off of each floor. Up here, I'm going to put in a temporary dirt floor so we don't die while we're working here. And we'll go ahead and we'll put in the initial bottom part of the wall. And that means that right here is where the window would be. So right here is where we'll have our windmill. And since we're going to have the flared roof that extends 1 block out over the rest of the structure, we're going to have the windmill stick out 2 blocks, which means we're also going to have a little bit of support right under here for its axle. It doesn't actually need that. You can make very strange looking floaty windmills if you want, but that is not the aesthetic we're going for. And what I'm thinking we'll do here is we're going to bring the walnut up here, because this is kind of like a windowsill. So I'm thinking that if we do that, we can then chisel them back just a little bit. Actually, what we'll do is we'll sort of turn these into a full stair, like a full stair looking block, and then maybe chisel a bit underneath it into the sides so that the windmill axle still has something to latch onto without making it look too funny. Better idea. We'll just chisel you this way. Alright, so what we'll do is we will drop you there. And since you're already chiseled, we're just going to go ahead and add these on. And then let's just kind of round this out a little bit. Something like that. Yes. So let's do 3 more of these, 1 for each direction. And then we'll put them in place. There. We'll put you here. And you get to go here. There we go. Those look pretty good. To make most windmill and mechanical parts, you need a few basic things. You typically need a saw, you need a chisel, and you need a hammer. You don't need all of these for everything, but it's good to have them near at hand so that you can use them when you need them. You'll also typically need some amount of fat. Start with half a stack. And you're going to burn through a lot of resin, which is why we have half a stack of that. And then you're going to want to pick whatever kind of junk wood that you are willing to part with, because you're going to go through a lot of it. And I have some maple here somewhere, I think. Maple, yeah, here we go. Junk wood. And as always, the handbook is indispensable when it comes to making these. I don't have these memorized, and neither should you. So we're going to need 1 rotor, and that is fairly simple. We need a hammer, and a chisel, and we need 2 logs, and we need resin and fat. That gets us 1 rotor. We're going to need some angled gears, and I think we'll make a few of these just so we have them around, because we will need a ton of these in the long run. We'll make, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these. And those are just made like this. We'll start with 5. And then we need a lot of axles. And these are also fairly simple. Just logs and fat, and then your hammer and chisel. And I think we're going to need to make probably... Oh, they stacked to 16 apparently, okay. Let's do that many. I think we're going to need at least that many. So as you can see, we just burned through half a stack of fat in no time flat, which is good that we have been breeding our pigs, because they will help us replenish this. Now, the last thing we're going to need, and I do have the inventory for it, is we need some sails. Sails are made with full-size linen and sticks, and we need some more sticks. So we need linen here and there, and then sticks, like so. And each set of sails comes in a set of 4, and we want 5 sets. And as you can see there, we just burned through a quarter of a stack of linen, again, in no time whatsoever. And let's go and build our windmill. And I'm going to have our first windmill face west. 1, because the wind comes from that direction. 2, because it's opposite the house, so it would make more sense that we get more wind from that direction, even though that isn't quite true. Although obstructions can prevent wind from reaching your sails. And I made a grave sin. Look, you didn't see that. You didn't see that. You didn't see that. Anyway, let's get down a couple axles here. And axles will be placed horizontally where you designate. Oh, apparently, they won't connect to chisel blocks, even if they have a full face. That's fine. And then we're just going to use some dirt to scoot our way around here. We'll drop our rotor on, and then we will get rid of the dirt so we don't accidentally blow up our sails. And let's put our sails on. And it looks like the wind speed is kind of low right now, but that's fine because we are not hooked up to anything. There we go. Full set of sails on a windmill. Feels good, man. So let's bring this axle out to here, and we're going to go down right in the very center of our tower here. And we'll drop our first angled, right, and axles have to be hooked up to things in order to actually put the angled gears on them, but after that you can just take this away, and again, oh, they changed that. They made a liar of me. Well, we will put a couple of these because I'm going to be messing around with these later. So let's go ahead and do that. And then let's make our way down our tower, putting these axles down the whole way. And there we have our shaft run the whole way down. Let's go grab our quern. Listen to that go. And now we can just put stuff in, and it will start grinding automatically. Now, with the wind speed being as low as it is, it's not going to go as fast as even we could probably turn it. Oh, there it goes. Picking up a little bit. But it will, over time, deposit this in the output slot. Now, this is great and all, but with this setup, that means that we have to, every now and then, come back and check on this and retrieve our items and put in whatever it is we want to grind up next. We can make this better. We can make this a lot better. What we can do is, instead of powering this quern from above, we can instead power it from below. If we bring this axle back a couple blocks, maybe to here, or even over to a corner so we can sort of hide it in the wall a little bit, we can bring this axle down and power the quern from beneath, and then we can create a chute and attach it to the top of the quern and put a chest on that, and then anything in the chest will go into the quern. So the first thing we need is a chute. And chutes are made with copper, and lots of it. Okay, we now have 4 chute sections, and to make a straight chute section, all you do is place them side by side like this. And I'm going to go ahead and just make one for now, because I know we need one, and I don't know if we're going to need a different type of chute later on. So, let's go and rejigger our whole setup upstairs in the tower, and we will get our automation going on. So what we are going to do here is first we're going to just sort of chop up this setup here, and then we're going to put a chute right there, and on top a chest, and we'll label you Quern Input. I think I'm actually just going to, at least for now, bring the shafts down right here, which will be in front of the windows, but you know what, we're not going to be looking out from them very much. No one's going to be looking in from outside, so I don't think we need to worry too much about that placement. I just don't want to burn through 7 angled gears getting over to this corner and back. So we will need to actually dig up the floor a bit here, because this is going to have to go under here. Let's sneak under here, and we are going to just maybe dig another block deeper, at least for now. We will want to fill out this basement, or rather take out the area for this basement, but for now, just a couple blocks will do. And we can see down into this hole. Perfect. Our axle is going to come along here, and then we'll have an angled gear, like so, and then we'll go, I guess we need to put a block right there, put our axle there, and, as I think I had mentioned earlier, several episodes ago, the querns are actually gravity affected, so they will slide and do that kind of thing when you remove their support. So let's bring you here. We'll drop that there. Much better. There we go. And then we will just build this long axle all the way to the top here. Okay, so now our axle's coming in a little closer to the wall here. So let's bring you up here. There we go, there's that. And then we put our angled gear in there. And how's our wind speed doing? Pretty low, okay. But still going. So now, what we can do is if we take these out of here momentarily, we can drop them in here, and they will make their way through this chute and into the quern. And we can load it up with a lot more limestone than just one stack. So let's grab a couple here, and we'll throw these in. And of course, once this gets full up to 64, then these will temporarily stop flowing. They'll sit here and wait. Now, what happens when this guy gets full, though? Look at that. Now that it's full, we have a piece of lime sitting out on the ground, and one over here. And it's going to keep doing that, because now that it's full, it's still going to keep grinding, even though there's already product filling up its output slot. So as you can see, as the quern gets full, it simply ejects the product, whatever it is, flour or lime in this case, out one side of the quern. And what it'll do is it'll pick a side. I think it's random, but it almost looks sequential at the moment. We'll see if this one does the next one. We'll see if it... Oh, there it goes. So I think it is sequential, looks like. So it will just sort of go in order, and it will dump the product out one of the slots here into one of these squares. Now, that's not great, because if we're out on a journey and we're not paying attention to the quern and checking it regularly, we might end up with material despawning out here on our floor. And we don't want that, because, well, it's effort going into this, and we don't want to waste that effort. How do we make this better? The answer is a whole heck of a lot of copper. And I say this because I was doing some testing earlier, and similar to that other block game, you can move items around with water. So you can have a water channel, and you can throw arch slabs in it, or dirt blocks, and they'll get carried along by the water. However, anything that's powdered like this dissolves, which makes sense. It's just kind of cruel, in my opinion. So, if you have lime or ground up sulfur or salt or flour, all of those will end up just disappearing in the water. So we can't use a water stream for this purpose around the quern. Instead, we need to find some other solution. And unfortunately, that solution is putting a hopper in each of the cardinal directions around the quern, and then typically blocking off these diagonal squares here, and also usually making a custom fit block to make sure that your product doesn't end up sitting on the edge of the hopper. So it's a good thing we started our copper collection, but we're going to need to expand it, and we're actually getting kind of low on the native copper, but we'll take out everything we have, and we do luckily have plenty of malachite to fall back on, and even more in the land around us. So let's go ahead and we're going to start making some more copper ingots. And I'm probably not going to max out our setup just yet because it's going to take a while. A single hopper takes 3 copper plates. Each copper plate takes 2 copper ingots and a whole heck of a lot of time smithing them. So I might just make 1 or 2 and demonstrate how this works, and then when we get the ability to speed up the production of copper plates, and plates in general, we'll come back in and we'll fill it up the whole way and get maximum production out of it. But for now, I'm just going to resort to checking it frequently to make sure that we get all of our product out. So I'm going to go ahead and start smelting up some copper here, and start working on some plates, and we'll get a hopper going. And while we are waiting for our copper to smelt, I wanted to show you what I've come up with for our basement walls. And you may have seen them around, I just haven't brought attention to them just yet. But I'm deciding to go with some granite stone bricks at the bottom, and at rows 3 and 4. And they come out the whole way, take up the entire block. And then at the row right about eye level, I have a layer of shale rock slabs, the polished kind, inset. So they're just on the opposite side of the block, the far side. I wanted to give it just a little bit of depth, so I think this does that trick. And then continuing on up past the stone bricks, we have some shale cobblestone, sort of brought down from the shale cobblestone that is resting directly on top of it, which forms the external foundation for the house. And then just outside of that, the granite cobblestone stairs were kind of getting lost as far as like crown molding goes. So I came in with this larch and put some slabs down and then chiseled them down to almost nothing. This is like 3/8 of a slab basically. And I just did that sort of the whole way around here. I'm not quite done yet. So I ran out of, I think, the brick. No, I ran out of the slabs. I have a few more bricks, I just didn't place them yet here. And I still need to do the crown molding up here. Okay, now that we have our 3 copper plates, what we can do now is we can go ahead and make our hopper, like so. And we'll put it in place with a clang, or a tunk. And then we can take a chest, in this case a labeled chest, and we're just going to plop it right there. And they don't look like they connect, but they do, don't worry. And what we can do now is we can just fill this up with several stacks of input. And what we can actually do is if we take this out and we just block that with a stick, rather than piling up in here, what will happen is it will always throw out its product. And what side are we going to come out now? That side. Okay, so the second one should come out into this hopper here, and we'll see that happen in a moment. Aha, out it comes, and straight into the hopper. And now we can find that in our output chest right here. Now, this of course is a problem when you have only one direction that this will actually collect in a hopper. So what we can do is if we block up these 3 sides here, what'll happen is it'll go around and it'll try this side. It'll fail. So it'll actually start the grind over again. And it'll try this side. It'll fail. So it'll try the grind over again, try this side and fail, and then come around to this side again. So we've effectively cut our efficiency, or the speed, down to 25%. So I think what I'm going to do for now is I'll probably just leave this stick out for the moment. I'll just come and clear this out every now and then, and in the meantime, if I forget about it, it will drop into the hopper here. Now, something important to note is that if you are using the Quern output method where it pops out of the Quern, you need to make sure that you stay in the area and that the chunks you're in, or the chunks that your Quern is in are loaded while you have items being processed. And that's because if you leave the area, what can happen is the game does try to catch up time that's passed when you are not around, which is why your crops will grow when you're not around, unlike in that other block game. What happens with items that come out of the Quern is, I think it just sort of ticks through their despawn timer really quickly when you're not around. And so you'll find that items that should have been processed are simply gone. So if you're going on any long journeys, make sure you empty out your Quern inputs and your Quern itself so you don't lose any of your progress or your materials. So that is pretty much automation in a nutshell, at least the basics of it. Let us go and put this to use. I'm going to load this up with the rest of our limestone, and oh, there's a beautiful rift literally right there. Great. And I'm going to go and start working on this tower. I'll let this grind while I'm working, and I think I'm going to start with the roof and get the roof in, and then as this grinds up our limestone for us, we'll turn it into lime, and we can then bake it into quicklime, and then we can get these walls in. So, let's get to it. This looks a little bit plain to me. I have an idea, though. I do have an idea. I don't quite believe it, but I think I have literally exactly enough plaster for the completion of this windmill. I have 24 pieces. I need 8 pieces in each of these 3 windows. That's 24, right there. It's a sign. This windmill was meant to be. Now what I might do is I might come in here and just take out, like, this much of each block, which of course leaves that below, which I'm not too jazzed about, but we can probably fill it in with some slate or shale cobble. But I think that rounding this off would help quite a bit. Yeah, let's do it. And here it is, at last. The Tower of Mechanical Power is largely complete. It needs some detail work. The windows will have the same kind of trim we use in the house. But now, for the last little bit I want to do this episode, is I want to connect these two with a bridge to what will eventually be our second floor in our house. And to do that, I did need to make some more plaster. And that means I broke my streak of having perfect plaster for the tower, but it's worth it. So, let's get to work. So we're going to start by knocking out this wall here. There we go. And then I'm going to use, I'm thinking, again, larch floors. There we go. We have our walkway. And then for the material the walkway is made of on the outside, I'm thinking we're going to have, for certain, some plaster walls. But then underneath here, I wanted to have sort of like a rounded off kind of archway here that kind of goes up and around, kind of hobbit hole style. Made out of either granite cobblestone or granite cobblestone brick. And then I want to come in with the walnut underneath here and do something fancy at the edge of the wall. There we go. And then I want this to be a very brightly lit hallway, so we're going to just put a whole bunch of windows in. Okay, so I want to mark our center line, which is going to be right here. Let's do a 5 wide entrance, and then I want to start with cobble. I'm going to rough this in cobblestone first, and then once I get it the way I like it, I'll come in with the brick and replace some or all of it, and we'll see where we go from there. There we go, there's a start. I might bring this cobblestone, or the brick, whatever I choose, all the way across here. And then we'll just patch up this chiseling piece right here. There we go. And then we'll do the same thing on this side. Oop, as I slip on the ice. And there we have it, minus that fix right there. And that will be sort of the entrance area for our house when we have visitors. They can pull their carriages up, they can debark, get out of the rain. And now, I think we'll do the roof. Now, I think what we'll do for the roof in this case is, I think we're going to do a much shallower roof than we did up there. We have those very tall, peaky roofs with a sort of flare at the end to sort of fling the water off the roof. But here we have a much smaller roof, so there won't be as much water running down the roof and needing to be flung off. So I think what we'll do is we're going to set this as the absolute highest it can go, so that the roof doesn't interfere with this window. And actually, I may just use all flat slabs and set the roof here, because if I don't, then any 45-degree angle roof would cut right through this block here. So that's what we'll do. We'll take our slabs and we'll actually just flatten them all out, and we'll just do that, like so. And that, well, once we get this side done, that will be our roof line, just like that. And there we have our roof. Yeah, I think I will replace some of these with some bricks, just to break up that really noisy pattern we have going on. So let me go get some of those. And the trick, in my opinion, to making this look good, while still having the kind of mismatch of the textures, is you want to have it be a little patchy. You don't want it to be too regular. In fact, like right here, this is a little too much. So what I might do is I might come up here and just swap these two. See if that fixes that. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. This was just sort of a little blocky, and it didn't really emphasize that this one is a little sort of shorter than this next one here. And I could even maybe replace you with another brick block, just to balance it out a little bit. But you do it patchy and relatively regular, but not so regular that it becomes a pattern. And then you get this nice sort of natural look. We've got some, areas of stone that have been very well maintained, and then the cobblestone that the brick started to crumble, and we just sort of shored it up with chips and bits and mortar and stuff. And then I have an idea for what to do on the underside here as well as out here, because I want to pop something out right here to make this a little less flat and give us something to put decorations on, because I think it would be nice to have planters outside these windows with flowers in them. So let's get that in. there she is. Still a work in progress, but I am really liking how this is shaping up. We still have some detail work to do on a lot of the windows. We need some railing over here, something to keep us from falling off and to keep drifters from knocking on our front door, like they so often like to do. But this is the house, the exterior, mostly complete. Now, this is Infrastructure Week, I did say that earlier, and that means that we are going to keep working on automation in the next couple episodes. There are two main other machines you can automate using wind power, and we're going to focus on those, and that will actually greatly speed up our ability to do a lot of the things that we do in the game. So before we end here, I wanted to note that we have been together for 25 episodes, and this represents almost 120 hours of my time in this game, and about an equal amount of time editing videos, so we've been together for a while. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who watch the videos, whether you leave a like or not, whether you subscribe or not. Thank you, all of you, for watching and making this just a very enjoyable endeavor. I've had so much fun in this world, and I'm looking forward to many more episodes of this special vintage story world. Not to commemorate or anything, but I thought it would be fun to, in the future, maybe have a little Q&A and AMA sort of thing. And so I'm thinking about maybe collecting a few questions if you want to ask me anything about vintage story, or my favorite pizza toppings, or how many cats I have, and how ornery they are. I thought it'd be just sort of a fun thing to do next time I have a big build project. That way I can sort of have the montage going in the background and talk to you in the meantime, even when there isn't anything in particular to discuss in the montage. If you want to leave a question that I can use in a later Q&A, leave them in a comment with the hashtag 20questions. It's on screen now, and I will leave the hashtag in the video description. And I may not answer these questions right away because I have a small buffer of episodes that I keep, so it might be a couple episodes between any questions and when I get around to answering them, but I'll read them all. And I won't answer them in the comments. So there, I guess. Haha. Anyway, that is finally where we're going to cap this episode for today. I hope you've enjoyed our big adventure in building this tower, in mechanical power, and in building this bridge and finishing the exterior of our house, minus some details. I'm looking forward to continuing the next couple episodes with the mechanical power, and then we will see where this guide takes us from there. Anyway, as always, my name has been Quern. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.